Father Michael O'Connor knelt beside the construction pit, his weathered hands trembling as he brushed dirt from the black fabric. The excavator had stopped when metal hit something that wasn't rock. Now, in the autumn of 1995, 7 years after Sister Mary Catherine, Sister Agnes Marie, and Sister Bernadette had vanished from St. Bartholomew Convent, their bodies lay exposed in the Indiana soil. "Jesus Christ," whispered Tommy Kowalski, the construction foreman. He crossed himself quickly. "Father, I think we found your missing nuns." The priest's face went ashen. 3 skeletal remains lay in a neat row, still clothed in their black habits with white coifs beneath. The fabric had preserved remarkably well in the clay soil. Each body showed signs of deliberate burial, hands folded across chests, positioned with care. "Nobody touches anything else," Father O'Connor commanded, his voice cracking. "Tommy, call the sheriff immediately. This is a crime scene now." The construction site buzzed with nervous energy as workers backed away from the pit. St. Bartholomew's new parish hall would have to wait. The missing sisters, aged 58, 64, and 71 when they disappeared, had been found. Detective Ray Brennan arrived within 20 minutes, followed by the county coroner. Brennan, a 35-year-old Irish Catholic detective, had worked the original missing persons case in 1988. He remembered the fruitless searches, the dead-end interviews, and the growing certainty that something terrible had happened to the 3 elderly nuns. "Father O'Connor, I need you to formally identify these remains based on what you can observe," Brennan said, pulling out his notepad. "The habits, any distinctive items you recognize." The priest studied the bodies carefully. Sister Mary Catherine always wore a small silver cross on a chain around her neck. I can see it there on the middle remains. Sister Agnes Marie had a distinctive wooden rosary with large beads. That's definitely hers on the left. And Sister Bernadette, she carried a leather prayer book in her habit pocket. I can see the outline of it. Brennan nodded grimly. "When did you last see them alive?" "October 15, 1988. They were planning to visit the Catholic hospital in Fort Wayne to pray with terminal patients. It was their monthly ministry. They left after morning prayers and never returned." The coroner, Dr. Elizabeth Hayes, carefully examined the positioning of the bodies. "Detective, these women didn't die here accidentally. Someone buried them with deliberate care. The arrangement suggests they were placed here by someone who knew them, possibly respected them." "How long would you estimate they've been here?" Brennan asked. "Based on the state of decomposition and fabric preservation, I'd say approximately 7 years. That matches your missing persons timeline perfectly." Father O'Connor's hands shook as he lit a cigarette. "Detective Brennan, there's something I never told you during the original investigation. Something I thought might be unrelated." "What's that, Father?" "The week before they disappeared, Sister Mary Catherine came to me with concerns about financial irregularities in the convent's books. She was our treasurer. She said someone had been making unauthorized withdrawals from the building fund." Brennan's pen stopped moving. "How much money are we talking about?" Approximately $40,000 over 6 months. Sister Mary Catherine was preparing a detailed report. She planned to present it to Bishop Morrison after their hospital visit. "Did she suspect anyone specifically?" The priest hesitated. "She mentioned that only 3 people had access to the account signatures besides herself. Me, Mother Superior Patricia, and our business manager, Mr. Charles Henley." Detective Brennan felt the familiar tingle of a case breaking open. Financial fraud, and 3 dead nuns. After 7 years of cold leads, this discovery changed everything. "Father, I need you to gather all financial records from 1988. Every bank statement, every check, every deposit slip. And I need to speak with Mother Superior Patricia and Charles Henley immediately." "Mother Patricia died 2 years ago of cancer," Father O'Connor replied sadly. "But Charles still manages our business affairs. He's been with the church for 15 years. Where can I find him?" "His office is in the rectory basement. He should be there now, working on the weekly financial reports." As the coroner's team carefully removed the remains, Brennan studied the burial site. The bodies had been placed in what would have been the future location of the parish hall. Someone had planned this burial knowing the area would eventually be developed. "Tommy," Brennan called to the foreman, Who knew about the construction plans for this site back in 1988? Kowalski scratched his head. Well, the parish council had been discussing the new hall for about a year before it was approved. The plans were pretty widely known in the community. And when was construction originally supposed to begin? We were supposed to start in spring of 1989, but funding got delayed. Kept getting pushed back until this year. Brennan made careful notes. Someone had counted on the bodies remaining undisturbed for much longer. The killer hadn't anticipated the construction delays. Father O'Connor approached the detective as the remains were loaded into the coroner's van. "Detective, I need to ask you something. Do you think whoever did this might try to hurt other members of our community?" "I don't know yet, Father, but I intend to find out. These women deserved justice 7 years ago. They're going to get it now." As the sun set over St. Bartholomew Convent, Detective Ray Brennan prepared to reopen the most perplexing case of his career. 3 elderly nuns, a missing financial report, and $40,000 in stolen church funds. The pieces were finally starting to come together. The investigation reopens. Detective Brennan spread the original case files across his desk at the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department. 7 years of dust couldn't hide the frustration evident in every report. Dead ends, false leads, and a complete absence of physical evidence had stalled the investigation within months. Sheriff Patricia Walsh knocked on his office door. "Ray, I just got off the phone with the state police. They're sending a forensic team to process the burial site. This is going to be front-page news by tomorrow morning." "Good. Maybe someone will come forward with new information." Brennan studied the victim profiles. Sister Mary Catherine Brennan. No relation despite the name. 58 years old. Convent treasurer for 12 years. Sister Agnes Marie Kowalski, 64, taught at the parish school for 30 years. Sister Bernadette Murphy, 71, served as the convent's librarian and archivist. 3 model citizens, Walsh observed. What did the coroner find? Dr. Hayes confirmed all 3 died from blunt force trauma to the skull. Single strikes, possibly from a heavy tool like a hammer or tire iron. The killer was efficient, not sadistic. The sheriff frowned. That suggests someone who knew them, someone they trusted enough to get close. Exactly my thinking. And Father O'Connor's revelation about the missing 40,000 changes the entire scope of this case. Brennan's phone rang. The caller identified himself as Charles Henley, the church's business manager. "Detective, Father O'Connor said you wanted to speak with me about the sisters. I can come to the station immediately if necessary." "Actually, Mr. Henley, I'd prefer to meet at your office. I want to see the financial records in their original location." 20 minutes later, Brennan descended into the rectory basement. Charles Henley's office was a study in meticulous organization. Filing cabinets lined the walls, labeled by year and category. Henley himself was a thin, nervous man in his mid-40s, with prematurely gray hair and thick glasses. "This is terrible news about the sisters," Henley said, wringing his hands. "I've prayed for their safe return every day for 7 years. Mr. Henley, Father O'Connor mentioned that Sister Mary Catherine had concerns about financial irregularities before her disappearance. What can you tell me about that?" Henley's face flushed slightly. "Sister Mary Catherine was very thorough in her bookkeeping. Sometimes she questioned legitimate expenses that she didn't fully understand." "What kind of expenses?" "Maintenance contracts, professional services, building improvements. The church has many financial obligations that require expertise to manage properly." Brennan pulled out his notepad. "I need to see all bank records from 1988, particularly the building fund account that Sister Mary Catherine managed." "Of course, Detective. Though I should mention that some records were damaged in a basement flood 3 years ago. We lost several boxes of documents from the late 1980s. "How convenient," Brennan thought but didn't say. "Show me what you have." Henley produced a single box of water-stained papers. "This is all that survived from 1988. Most of the bank statements are illegible." Brennan examined the damaged documents. The water damage was extensive, but something seemed odd about the pattern. "Mr. Henley, when exactly did this flood occur?" "June of 1992. A water pipe burst over the weekend. By Monday morning, half the basement was underwater." "And you were the first to discover the damage?" "Yes, I come in early every Monday to prepare the weekly reports. Detective Brennan made a mental note to verify the flood story with local plumbers and insurance companies. Who else had access to these financial records? Only Father O'Connor, Mother Superior Patricia, and Sister Mary Catherine. The four of us were the only signatories on the church accounts. What about the building fund specifically? Henley shifted uncomfortably. That account required 2 signatures for withdrawals over $1,000. Sister Mary Catherine and one of the other 3 signatories. So if someone wanted to steal from that account, they would need Sister Mary Catherine's cooperation or her signature. Theoretically, yes, but Sister Mary Catherine was absolutely incorruptible. She would never have participated in any financial impropriety. Brennan studied Henley's body language. The man was sweating despite the cool basement temperature. Mr. Henley, did you ever have any personal conflicts with Sister Mary Catherine? Conflicts? No, Detective, though she could be demanding in her attention to detail. She questioned every expense, required documentation for everything. Some people found her approach excessive, including you. I understood her commitment to fiscal responsibility. It's an admirable quality in a treasurer. The detective noticed that Henley hadn't directly answered the question. Where were you on October 15, 1988, the day the sisters disappeared? Neo, I was here, working in my office. I remember because Sister Mary Catherine stopped by that morning before leaving for Fort Wayne. She said she wanted to discuss some financial matters when she returned. Did she specify what financial matters? Henley paused, apparently searching his memory. Something about discrepancies in the monthly statements. She had prepared a folder with documentation, but she never had the chance to show it to me. What happened to that folder? I assumed it was in her personal effects. When the sisters didn't return, Father O'Connor sealed their rooms. I never saw the folder again. Brennan felt his pulse quicken. Those rooms are still sealed? As far as I know, Father O'Connor would have the key. Within an hour, Detective Brennan was climbing the narrow stairs to the convent's 2nd floor with Father O'Connor. The priest's hands shook slightly as he unlocked Sister Mary Catherine's door. The room was exactly as she had left it 7 years ago. A simple bed, a wooden desk, a small bookshelf filled with religious texts. On the desk, Brennan found a manila folder marked Building Fund Analysis, October 1988. Inside were photocopied bank statements, canceled checks, and a handwritten summary in neat script. Sister Mary Catherine had documented everything. Unauthorized checks totaling $38,700, all signed by Charles Henley, and countersigned with what appeared to be forged versions of her signature. Father, Brennan said quietly, I think we just found our motive. Unraveling deception. Detective Brennan spread Sister Mary Catherine's financial analysis across the conference table at the sheriff's department. Each photocopied check told the same story. Charles Henley's signature paired with crude forgeries of the nun's careful handwriting. Sheriff Walsh examined the documents through a magnifying glass. These forgeries are amateur work. Anyone with experience in document analysis would spot them immediately. That's exactly what Sister Mary Catherine did. Look at this summary she prepared. Brennan pointed to the handwritten report. She compared the signatures on 37 different checks to samples of her own writing. She even documented the paper type and ink analysis. The summary revealed a systematic theft spanning 6 months. Henley had been writing checks to fictitious companies for building maintenance, professional services, and equipment purchases. The money was being funneled through accounts at 3 different banks. Ray, this gives us motive, but we need more evidence to make an arrest. Henley could claim these documents are fabricated. Already working on it. I called the banks this morning. They're pulling all the microfilm records from 1988. We should have copies of the actual canceled checks by tomorrow. Brennan's phone rang. The caller was Dr. Hayes from the coroner's office. Detective, I have preliminary autopsy results on the 3 sisters. All 3 died from single blunt force trauma to the occipital region of the skull. The weapon was likely a claw hammer or similar tool. Time of death? Based on insect evidence and decomposition patterns, I estimate they died within 24 hours of their disappearance, probably on October 15th or 16th, 1988. Any other significant findings? Sister Mary Catherine had defensive wounds on her hands and forearms. She fought her attacker. The other two sisters showed no signs of struggle. They were likely killed after witnessing Sister Mary Catherine's murder. Brennan thanked the coroner and turned to Sheriff Walsh. We need to find that murder weapon. If Henley killed them in a panic, he might have kept the hammer or thrown it away somewhere nearby. I'll organize a search team for the convent grounds and surrounding area. What's your next move? I want to interview Henley again, but this time with more specific questions about his whereabouts and activities on October 15th. The detective drove to St. Bartholomew Convent, arriving just as Charles Henley was locking his office door. Mr. Henley, I have some follow-up questions about the sisters' disappearance. Henley's face went pale. Of course, Detective. Should we go back to my office? Actually, I'd prefer to talk at the station. It's more private. During the 20-minute drive, Henley fidgeted constantly, adjusting his glasses and checking his watch repeatedly. At the sheriff's department, Brennan led him to interview room 2, a windowless space with recording equipment. Mr. Henley, I want to review your statement about October 15th, 1988. You said Sister Mary Catherine visited your office that morning. Yes, briefly. She mentioned wanting to discuss financial matters when she returned from Fort Wayne. What time did she visit you? Around 8:30, I believe, just after morning prayers ended. Brennan consulted his notes. According to Father O'Connor, morning prayers ended at 8 o'clock that day. The sisters left for Fort Wayne at 8:15. That doesn't give Sister Mary Catherine much time for a visit to your office. Henley shifted in his chair. I might be mistaken about the exact time. It was 7 years ago. Let me help refresh your memory. We found Sister Mary Catherine's financial analysis in her room. She documented 37 fraudulent checks drawn on the building fund account, all bearing your signature and forged versions of hers. The color drained completely from Henley's face. I don't know what you're talking about. The checks were made out to companies that don't exist. Midwest Building Services, Cardinal Construction, Holy Family Maintenance. We verified with the Secretary of State's office. None of these businesses were ever registered in Indiana. There must be some mistake. Brennan leaned forward. Charles, Sister Mary Catherine discovered your theft. She prepared a complete report with evidence. You knew she was going to expose you when she returned from Fort Wayne. This is ridiculous. I've served this church faithfully for 15 years. Where did you deposit the stolen money? I never stole anything. The detective pulled out photocopies of the forged checks. Your signature appears on every one of these fraudulent documents. The handwriting analysis will prove you forged Sister Mary Catherine's signature. Henley stared at the documents, his hands trembling. I want to call a lawyer. That's your right. But before you do, let me tell you what I think happened. Sister Mary Catherine confronted you about the theft on October 15th. You panicked. Maybe you didn't plan to hurt her. But things got out of control. I'm not saying another word without an attorney present. Brennan stood up. Charles Henley, you're under arrest for the murders of Sister Mary Catherine Brennan, Sister Agnes Marie Kowalski, and Sister Bernadette Murphy. As the detective read Henley his Miranda rights, the business manager's composure finally cracked. Tears streamed down his face, but he remained silent. Back in his office, Brennan called the district attorney to discuss charging strategies. The evidence was strong but not overwhelming. They needed more physical proof connecting Henley to the actual murders. Sheriff Walsh appeared in his doorway. Ray, the search team found something interesting buried under the tool shed behind the rectory. A claw hammer with traces of what looks like blood on the metal head. How long has it been buried? Hard to say definitively, but the rust patterns suggest several years. We're sending it to the state crime lab for blood typing and DNA analysis. And the financial records from the banks? Arrived this afternoon. The microfilm copies confirm everything in Sister Mary Catherine's report. 37 fraudulent checks totaling $38,700. Brennan smiled grimly. We're building a solid case, but I have a feeling this goes deeper than simple embezzlement. 3 elderly nuns don't get murdered over $40,000 unless there's something else at stake. What are you thinking? I think Charles Henley had help. Someone else knew about the theft and helped cover it up. The question is who? Deeper conspiracies. Detective Brennan sat across from Charles Henley and his court-appointed attorney Marcus Klein in the county jail's interview room. 24 hours in custody had taken its toll on the church business manager. His face was haggard, his hands shook, and he'd barely touched his breakfast. "Mr. Henley, we've completed our analysis of the financial records. 37 fraudulent checks, all deposited into accounts at First National, Citizens Bank, and Farmers Trust. The money was then transferred to a single account at Indiana Commerce Bank under the name Midwest Holdings, LLC. Attorney Klein leaned forward. "Detective, what exactly are you offering my client?" "The state crime lab confirmed that the hammer we found contains blood matching Sister Mary Catherine's DNA profile. We also found your client's fingerprints on the handle, despite 7 years of burial." Henley's face went ashen. "That's impossible. I never touched any hammer." "Charles, we have the murder weapon, the financial motive, and your opportunity. A jury is going to convict you of 3 counts of first-degree murder. You're looking at life in prison without parole." Klein whispered something to his client, then addressed Brennan. "What kind of deal are you prepared to offer?" "That depends on what your client can tell us about his accomplices. We know he didn't act alone." "I worked alone," Henley insisted. "Nobody else was involved." Brennan opened a thick folder. "Charles, let me explain what we've discovered about Midwest Holdings, LLC. The company was incorporated in Delaware 3 months before the thefts began. The registered agent is a law firm in Wilmington that specializes in anonymous corporate structures. So, the bank signature cards show 2 authorized signatories on the account, Charles Henley and someone using the name Patricia Morrison." Klein and Henley exchanged glances. The attorney spoke carefully. "Patricia Morrison was the Mother Superior who died 2 years ago." "We know, but the signature on the bank card doesn't match any samples of Mother Patricia's handwriting that we found in church records. Someone was impersonating her." Brennan pulled out photocopied signature cards. "The handwriting analysis suggests this Patricia Morrison signature was written by a woman, but not the real Mother Patricia. Someone else was helping you launder the stolen money." "I don't know anything about that," Henley mumbled. "Charles, here's what I think happened. You started stealing from the building fund with someone's help. When Sister Mary Catherine got suspicious, your partner suggested eliminating the threat permanently." "That's not true," the detective continued. "The burial site wasn't random. Someone with knowledge of the construction plans chose that location. Someone who knew the bodies wouldn't be discovered for years." Klein interrupted. "Detective, unless you're prepared to make a specific plea offer, this interview is over. 25 to life, eligible for parole in 25 years, in exchange for full cooperation and testimony against all co-conspirators." Henley looked at his attorney desperately. Klein shook his head slightly. "We'll need time to consider your offer," Klein said. After they left, Brennan drove to St. Bartholomew Convent to interview the current Mother Superior, Sister Catherine Rose. She had assumed leadership after Mother Patricia's death and might have insights into the financial arrangements from 1988. Sister Catherine Rose was a sharp-eyed woman in her early 60s who had served at the convent for 30 years. She met Brennan in the Mother Superior's office, a simple room with a crucifix on the wall and a wooden desk covered with administrative paperwork. "Detective, this whole situation has been devastating for our community. The sisters who died were beloved by everyone who knew them. I understand this is difficult, Sister. I need to ask about the financial management structure in 1988. Who had access to church accounts besides the official signatories?" "Only the 4 people Father O'Connor mentioned. Mother Patricia was very strict about financial controls. She didn't trust many people with money matters." "What was Mother Patricia's relationship with Charles Henley?" Sister Catherine Rose hesitated. "They worked closely together. Perhaps too closely, if I'm being honest." What do you mean by that?" "Mother Patricia relied heavily on Charles for business decisions, more than some of us thought was appropriate. He seemed to have unusual influence over her judgment." Brennan leaned forward. "Did you ever suspect any improper relationship between them?" Detective, I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but Mother Patricia changed significantly in the months before the sisters disappeared. She became secretive, defensive about financial matters, and dismissive of questions from other nuns, including questions from Sister Mary Catherine, especially from Sister Mary Catherine. There was obvious tension between them in the weeks before the disappearance. Do you know what caused that tension? Sister Catherine rose, stood, and walked to a filing cabinet. After Mother Patricia's death, I found some interesting documents in her personal effects. I probably should have given these to you earlier. She handed Brennan a manila envelope containing bank statements from 1988. The statements showed regular transfers from church accounts to Midwest Holdings LLC, all authorized by Mother Patricia Morrison's signature. Sister, these documents suggest Mother Patricia was directly involved in the embezzlement scheme. That's what I feared when I found them. But I couldn't believe she would steal from the church. I thought there might be some legitimate explanation. Brennan studied the bank statements carefully. The timing of these transfers corresponds exactly with Charles Henley's fraudulent checks. This proves they were working together. Detective, if Mother Patricia was stealing money, why would she have Sister Mary Catherine murdered? Why not just fire her or transfer her to another convent? Because Sister Mary Catherine had documented evidence of the fraud. Evidence that would have exposed both Mother Patricia and Charles Henley to criminal prosecution. The detective's phone buzzed with a text message from Sheriff Walsh. Lab results on hammer. Blood from all 3 victims found on weapon. Brennan stood to leave. Sister, I need you to gather all of Mother Patricia's personal effects from 1988. Financial documents, correspondence, calendar entries, anything that might show her activities around the time of the murders. Of course, Detective. Do you think she actually participated in killing the sisters? I think Mother Patricia Morrison was the mastermind behind the entire scheme. Charles Henley was just her accomplice. As Brennan drove back to the sheriff's department, his phone rang. It was Marcus Klein, Henley's attorney. Detective, my client is ready to talk. He wants to accept your plea offer. Good. Can you bring him in this afternoon? There's one condition. He wants protection. He's afraid of what might happen if certain people find out he's cooperating. What people, counselor? He'll explain when we get there. But, Detective, this case goes much deeper than you realize. The confessor's tale. Charles Henley sat in the interview room with his attorney, a tape recorder running and Detective Brennan taking notes. The business manager had aged years in the past week. His voice shook as he began his confession. It started in early 1988. Mother Patricia came to me with a proposition. She said the church was facing financial difficulties and needed to redirect some funds temporarily. What kind of redirection? Brennan asked. She wanted to borrow money from the building fund to cover operational expenses. She promised to repay everything within 6 months. But that's not what happened. Henley shook his head. The borrowed amounts kept growing. Mother Patricia said the diocese was conducting surprise financial audits, and we needed to hide the shortfalls. So you created the fictitious companies. Mother Patricia suggested it. She said we could write checks to fake businesses, deposit the money in separate accounts, and then transfer it back when the audits were over. Detective Brennan studied Henley's face. Charles, you're an experienced bookkeeper. You had to know this was fraud. I was terrified of losing my job. Mother Patricia said if anyone discovered the temporary borrowing, I would be blamed as the business manager. She offered to protect me if I cooperated. What changed? By October 1988, we had taken almost $40,000. Mother Patricia kept saying we would repay it soon, but there was never enough money. Then Sister Mary Catherine started asking detailed questions about the building fund. What kind of questions? She wanted to see all the canceled checks, all the vendor invoices, all the bank statements. She said something didn't look right in the monthly reconciliations. Brennan leaned forward. When did you realize Sister Mary Catherine had discovered the theft? Henley's hands trembled. October 14th. She came to my office with photocopies of the fraudulent checks. She had compared the signatures and figured out they were forged. What did she say? She demanded an explanation. She said she was going to report everything to Bishop Morrison after her hospital visit the next day. So you called Mother Patricia? Yes. That night, I went to Mother Patricia's office and told her about Sister Mary Catherine's discovery. Mother Patricia was furious. She said Sister Mary Catherine was going to destroy both of us. The detective made careful notes. What was Mother Patricia's reaction? She said we had to stop Sister Mary Catherine before she could make her report. She said there was too much at stake to let one stubborn nun ruin everything. Charles, did Mother Patricia suggest killing Sister Mary Catherine? Henley began crying. Not directly. She said the problem had to be eliminated permanently. She said Sister Mary Catherine would never listen to reason or accept any compromise. What happened on October 15th? Mother Patricia told me to wait in the tool shed behind the rectory. She said she would handle everything. Around noon she came running to the shed, screaming that there had been an accident. What kind of accident? She said Sister Mary Catherine had confronted her about the stolen money. They argued, and Sister Mary Catherine threatened to call the police immediately. Mother Patricia grabbed a hammer from the maintenance supplies and hit her. Brennan stopped writing. What about the other two sisters? They were with Sister Mary Catherine. They saw everything. Mother Patricia said they were witnesses who could send us both to prison for life. So you killed them too? Mother Patricia did. She said it was the only way. She used the same hammer. The detective felt sick. Where did this happen? In the basement storage room. Mother Patricia made me help her carry the bodies to my car. We drove to the construction site after dark and buried them. Why that specific location? Mother Patricia knew the construction had been delayed. She said the bodies wouldn't be found for years, maybe decades. Brennan looked at Henley with disgust. You helped bury 3 innocent women to cover up your theft. I was terrified. Mother Patricia said if I didn't help, she would claim I killed all 3 sisters myself. She said no one would believe her story over mine. What happened to the stolen money? Mother Patricia said she would handle returning it gradually to avoid suspicion. But after the murders, she never mentioned the money again. The detective consulted his notes. Charles, the bank records show that Midwest Holdings LLC continued receiving transfers from church accounts until December 1988, 2 months after the murders. Henley looked confused. That's impossible. I never authorized any transfers after October 15th. Then who did? Only Mother Patricia had access to those accounts after the sisters died. Brennan realized the scope of the conspiracy was even larger than he had imagined. Charles, how much money was actually stolen from the church? Oh, I thought it was about $40,000. But if transfers continued for 2 more months, our analysis shows total thefts of approximately $68,000. Henley stared at the detective in shock. Mother Patricia stole an additional $28,000 after the murders. It appears so. She used the deaths as cover to continue the embezzlement for 2 more months. The business manager broke down completely. She used me. She planned this whole thing. The murders weren't panic or self-defense. She wanted those sisters dead so she could keep stealing. Detective Brennan turned off the tape recorder. Charles, you're going to testify to everything you just told me. And you're going to help us prove that Mother Patricia Morrison was the mastermind behind 3 murders. But she's dead. What's the point of prosecuting a dead woman? Justice for Sister Mary Catherine, Sister Agnes Marie, and Sister Bernadette. They deserve to have the truth told about how they died and why. As Henley was led back to his cell, Brennan contemplated the twisted path of greed and murder that had destroyed so many lives. A respected Mother Superior had orchestrated the cold-blooded murder of 3 elderly nuns to conceal her theft of church funds. The case was solved, but Brennan knew the scandal would rock the Catholic community for years to come. Unraveling the Mother Superior's deception. Detective Brennan returned to St. Bartholomew Convent with a search warrant for Mother Patricia Morrison's former quarters. Though she had died 2 years earlier, her personal effects were still stored in the convent's archives. Sister Catherine Rose led him to a small storage room filled with boxes labeled with various Mother Superiors' names, dating back decades. Mother Patricia's belongings are in these 4 boxes, Sister Catherine Rose explained. After her funeral, we packed everything according to church protocol. Personal items were given to her family, but official documents and church-related materials remained here. Brennan began methodically examining the contents. Financial records, correspondence with diocesan officials, meeting minutes, and personal appointment calendars. One box contained Mother Patricia's personal effects, jewelry, photographs, and a leather-bound diary. Sister, did Mother Patricia keep regular diary entries? Oh yes, she was very disciplined about recording daily activities and observations. She said it helped her manage the convent more effectively. The detective opened the diary to October 1988. Mother Patricia's neat handwriting filled page after page with routine observations about convent life, prayer schedules, and administrative duties. Then he found the entry for October 14, 1988. Sister Mary Catherine confronted me today about discrepancies in the building fund. She has become suspicious and is asking too many questions. Charles is panicking and threatening to confess everything. The situation requires immediate resolution. I cannot allow 40 years of service to this church to be destroyed by one stubborn nun's meddling. Brennan read the entry twice. Mother Patricia's own words revealed her premeditation and calculated approach to murder. The October 15th entry was even more damning. The problem has been resolved permanently. Sister Mary Catherine, Sister Agnes Marie, and Sister Bernadette will no longer pose a threat to our operations. Charles performed adequately under pressure, though he required constant reassurance. The burial site should remain undisturbed for decades. I must now focus on gradually returning the borrowed funds to avoid suspicion from diocesan auditors. My God, Sister Catherine Rose whispered, reading over Brennan's shoulder. She planned their murders in advance. It gets worse, Brennan said, turning to subsequent entries. Mother Patricia had continued her theft for 2 more months, stealing an additional $28,000 while the entire community mourned the missing sisters. November 12, 1988. The investigation into the sisters' disappearance is proceeding as expected. The police have no leads and are beginning to consider the possibility that they left voluntarily. I have provided appropriate statements expressing concern and cooperation. Charles remains nervous but manageable. December 20th, 1988. Final transfer completed. Total recovery now stands at $68,000. The building fund discrepancies have been eliminated through careful manipulation of year-end financial reports. The diocesan audit scheduled for January should find no irregularities. Sister Catherine Rose sat down heavily. Detective, Mother Patricia supervised our community for 15 years. She baptized children, comforted the dying, led our prayers. How could she murder 3 innocent women? Greed and desperation make people capable of terrible things, sister. But this diary proves Mother Patricia was a calculating killer, not someone who acted in panic. Brennan continued reading through 1989 and 1990. Mother Patricia's entries showed no remorse for the murders, only satisfaction at successfully concealing her crimes. She wrote about the futility of the police investigation with apparent amusement. March 15, 1989. Detective Brennan visited again today to ask about the sisters' personal relationships and potential reasons for leaving voluntarily. I expressed appropriate concern and cooperation. His investigation appears to be stalling completely. Charles is adapting well to our new arrangement. The new arrangement became clear in subsequent entries. Mother Patricia had promoted Henley to assistant administrator and given him a significant salary increase, ensuring his continued silence and cooperation. Brennan found bank records hidden in the bottom of another box. Mother Patricia had opened 3 additional accounts under fictitious names, spreading the stolen money across multiple financial institutions to avoid detection. The total theft was actually closer to $90,000, not the $68,000 previously discovered. Sister, did Mother Patricia have family members who might have benefited from this money? She had a younger brother, Robert Morrison, who lived in Chicago. He visited occasionally, usually around Christmas and Easter. What did you know about him? Sister Catherine Rose frowned. He was always asking Mother Patricia for money, something about failed business investments and mounting debts. She seemed embarrassed by him. Brennan made notes to track down Robert Morrison. The diary entries from late 1988 mentioned sending money to Chicago several times, suggesting Mother Patricia had used some of the stolen funds to help her brother. January 8, 1989. Sent Robert another $5,000 to cover his gambling debts. He promises this will be the last time, but I know better. At least the money is serving a useful purpose now rather than sitting idle in church accounts. The detective's phone rang. Sheriff Walsh was calling with an update from the state crime lab. Ray, we got the DNA results back from the hammer. Blood samples match all 3 victims, confirming it as the murder weapon. But there's something else. We found 2 sets of fingerprints on the handle. Henley and Mother Patricia? Henley's prints are there, but the second set belongs to someone else. Someone whose prints are in the system. Who? Robert Morrison, arrested in Chicago in 1987 for assault and battery. He served 6 months in Cook County Jail. Brennan felt pieces of the puzzle clicking together. Patricia, send me everything you can find on Robert Morrison. Criminal record, known associates, current address. Already on it. But Ray, there's more. The coroner found something interesting during the autopsy of Sister Mary Catherine. She had skin cells under her fingernails that don't match Charles Henley. DNA analysis? Preliminary results suggest the skin cells came from a male, but not Henley. We're running it against Robert Morrison's DNA from his arrest record. After ending the call, Brennan turned to Sister Catherine Rose. I need you to think carefully about October 1988. Do you remember any visitors to the convent around the time the sisters disappeared? Mother Patricia's brother was here that week. I remember because it was unusual for him to visit outside the holidays. When exactly? He arrived on October 13th and left on October 16th. Mother Patricia said he was having personal problems and needed a quiet place to think. Eddie, where did he stay? In the guest quarters, a small apartment attached to the main building. Mother Patricia gave him complete privacy. She said he was dealing with sensitive family matters. Brennan realized Robert Morrison had been present during the murders and had likely participated in them. Mother Patricia hadn't acted alone with just Charles Henley's reluctant assistance. Her brother had been a willing accomplice. The diary entries confirmed this theory. Mother Patricia wrote about Robert's helpful assistance during the recent crisis, and his understanding of the necessary steps to protect our interests. October 17, 1988. Robert returned to Chicago this morning. His help during the past few days has been invaluable. He understands the importance of discretion and shares my commitment to protecting our family's reputation. The $5,000 I'm sending with him is a small price for his continued silence and support. Sister Catherine Rose, did you ever observe any interactions between Robert Morrison and Charles Henley? Only briefly. Robert seemed to intimidate Charles. I remember seeing them talking near the tool shed on October 14th, and Charles looked very frightened. What kind of man was Robert Morrison? Large, aggressive, quick to anger. Very different from Mother Patricia in temperament. She was calculating and controlled. He seemed more violent. Detective Brennan was building a clear picture of the conspiracy. Mother Patricia had masterminded the embezzlement scheme and recruited her brother to handle the physical aspects of the murders when her original plan with Henley began unraveling. Sister, I need to contact the Chicago Police Department. Robert Morrison may still be alive and could face charges as an accomplice to murder. Detective, how many people knew about Mother Patricia's crimes? Based on the evidence, at least 3. Mother Patricia, Charles Henley, and Robert Morrison. But there might be others. Banking relationships, money laundering operations, people who helped hide the stolen funds. Brennan packed up Mother Patricia's personal effects as evidence. The diary alone provided enough proof to close the case definitively, but he wanted to pursue every lead to ensure complete justice for the 3 murdered sisters. As he prepared to leave the convent, Sister Catherine Rose asked, "What happens now?" Charles Henley will plead guilty and testify about the murders. If Robert Morrison is still alive, he'll be arrested and extradited to face charges. And the Catholic community will finally know the truth about what happened to Sister Mary Catherine, Sister Agnes Marie, and Sister Bernadette. Will this destroy people's faith in the Church? Some people might lose faith, Sister, but others will remember that evil individuals don't represent the entire institution. The 3 sisters who died were good people who deserved better. Telling their story honors their memory. The Chicago Connection. Detective Brennan coordinated with Chicago Police Detective Maria Santos to locate Robert Morrison. The Cook County Criminal Database showed Morrison's last known address as a boarding house on the south side, but records indicated he had moved several times since his 1987 arrest. Detective Brennan, we've been tracking Morrison through various databases, Santos reported over the phone. He's had multiple arrests for assault, battery, and fraud over the past 7 years. Currently, he's living in a halfway house in Cicero under supervision for a parole violation. Is he cooperative with authorities? Morrison has a reputation for violence and intimidation. 3 different assault charges, all dismissed when witnesses refused to testify. He's connected to loan shark operations and illegal gambling. Perfect accomplice material for Mother Patricia's scheme. We'll bring him in for questioning this afternoon. Do you want to observe the interview via video link? Brennan accepted the offer and spent the afternoon in the Sheriff's Department's conference room, watching Robert Morrison's interrogation on a secure video connection to Chicago. Morrison was a large man in his early 50s, heavy-set with graying hair and scarred knuckles. He projected an aura of barely controlled violence that made even experienced detectives cautious. Mr. Morrison, we're investigating the 1988 murders of 3 nuns in Indiana. Your sister, Mother Patricia Morrison, was the Mother Superior at their convent. My sister died 2 years ago. What's this got to do with me? Your fingerprints were found on the murder weapon. A hammer used to kill Sister Mary Catherine, Sister Agnes Marie, and Sister Bernadette. Morrison's expression didn't change. I never heard of any dead nuns. Detective Santos placed photographs of the victims on the table. These women were murdered on October 15, 1988. You were visiting your sister at St. Bartholomew Convent that week. I visited Patricia lots of times. Doesn't mean I killed anybody. Mr. Morrison, we have your sister's diary documenting the murders in detail. She wrote about your participation in killing the nuns and burying their bodies. For the first time, Morrison showed emotion. Surprise, followed quickly by anger. Patricia kept a diary about that? So you admit you were involved? Morrison realized his mistake immediately. I want a lawyer. Before you stop talking, let me tell you what we know. Your sister stole $90,000 from the church. When Sister Mary Catherine discovered the theft, you and Patricia murdered her to keep her quiet. Then you killed the other 2 sisters because they were witnesses. You can't prove any of that. Detective Santos opened a thick file folder. We have Charles Henley's full confession. He's described your role in detail. We have the murder weapon with your fingerprints. We have your sister's diary admitting to the murders. And we have DNA evidence placing you at the scene. Morrison's hands clenched into fists. Henley's a lying coward. He was stealing money and killed those nuns when they found out. Patricia and I had nothing to do with it. That's not what the evidence shows, Robert. Your sister wrote about planning the murders. She wrote about you helping carry the bodies to the burial site. She wrote about paying you $5,000 for your assistance. Patricia was always writing crazy stuff in that diary. Doesn't mean it was true. The DNA evidence from Sister Mary Catherine's fingernails matches your profile. She fought back when you attacked her. Morrison stood up abruptly, his chair falling backward. I'm done talking without a lawyer present. Sit down, Mr. Morrison. You're under arrest for 3 counts of first-degree murder. As Chicago police officers restrained Morrison, he began shouting threats and obscenities. His violent reaction confirmed Brennan's assessment of his character and role in the murders. Later that evening, Detective Santos called Brennan with additional information about Morrison's activities. We searched Morrison's current residence and found some interesting items. Bank statements showing regular deposits from 1988 through 1992, apparently money his sister sent from the stolen church funds. Also found correspondence between the siblings discussing their business arrangement and the importance of maintaining silence. What kind of amounts are we talking about? Approximately $30,000 over 4 years. Patricia was essentially paying him hush money to ensure his continued cooperation. So she was supporting him with stolen church funds long after the murders. It gets better. We also found a life insurance policy Patricia took out on herself in 1989, naming Robert as the sole beneficiary. $200,000 payout. Brennan whistled. She was planning ahead. Even if she got caught, Morrison would be taken care of financially. The policy paid out when she died in 1993. Morrison used the money to open a small restaurant that failed within 6 months. Since then, he's been involved in various illegal activities to maintain his lifestyle. Detective Santos, what's the timeline for extradition? Morrison's attorney is fighting it, but we expect to have him transferred to Indiana within 2 weeks. He's being held without bail due to flight risk and the severity of the charges. The next morning, Brennan met with District Attorney Jennifer Walsh to discuss prosecution strategies. Ray, we have an extremely strong case. Physical evidence, confessions, documentary proof, and multiple witnesses. This should be a straightforward prosecution. What about the death penalty? Indiana had capital punishment in 1988, and triple murder with aggravating factors certainly qualifies, but Morrison's attorney will probably try to negotiate a plea to avoid execution. And Charles Henley? He's cooperating fully and showing genuine remorse. 25 to life with parole eligibility seems appropriate given his testimony against Morrison. Brennan reviewed his case files one final time. 7 years after 3 elderly nuns disappeared, their murders would finally be prosecuted. Mother Patricia Morrison had escaped earthly justice, but her co-conspirators would face the full consequences of their crimes. The detective's phone rang with a call from Father O'Connor. Detective Brennan, I wanted to inform you that the diocese has completed its own investigation into the financial irregularities. They've recovered approximately $60,000 from various accounts Mother Patricia established. The money will be used to establish a memorial scholarship fund in honor of the 3 sisters. That's appropriate, Father. What about the impact on your community? It's been devastating, Detective. Many parishioners are struggling to understand how their spiritual leader could commit such terrible crimes. But we're moving forward with faith and determination to honor the memory of Sister Mary Catherine, Sister Agnes Marie, and Sister Bernadette. Father, you should know that Charles Henley and Robert Morrison will both face trial within the next few months. There will be significant media attention and public scrutiny of the case. We're prepared for that, Detective. The truth needs to be told, regardless of the consequences for our reputation. Those 3 women deserved better than the silence that's protected their killers for 7 years. As Brennan ended the call, he reflected on the complexity of human nature. A respected Mother Superior had orchestrated the cold-blooded murder of 3 innocent nuns to conceal her theft. A trusted business manager had participated in murder to save his job. A violent criminal had killed elderly women for money, but the case also revealed nobility and courage. Sister Mary Catherine had risked her life to expose fraud and protect church funds. Sister Catherine Rose had cooperated fully with the investigation, despite the damage to her community's reputation. Charles Henley had finally found the courage to confess and accept responsibility for his crimes. Justice was finally within reach for the 3 sisters who had been buried in secret for 7 years. The trial. 6 months later, the Hamilton County Courthouse was packed with reporters, parishioners, and family members as Robert Morrison's trial began. Brennan sat in the prosecutor's section, having worked closely with District Attorney Jennifer Walsh to prepare the case. Morrison had refused all plea offers, insisting on his innocence despite overwhelming evidence. His defense attorney, Chicago criminal lawyer David Reese, planned to argue that Charles Henley had killed the nuns alone and fabricated Morrison's involvement to reduce his own sentence. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, D.A. Walsh began her opening statement. 7 years ago, 3 elderly Catholic nuns were brutally murdered to cover up a theft of church funds. The evidence will show that Robert Morrison participated in these murders alongside his sister, Mother Superior Patricia Morrison, and church business manager Charles Henley. Walsh methodically outlined the prosecution's case. The embezzlement scheme, Sister Mary Catherine's discovery of the fraud, the premeditated murders, and the cover-up that followed. She promised to present physical evidence, witness testimony, and documentary proof of Morrison's guilt. Defense attorney Reese countered with a different narrative. Charles Henley was a desperate man caught stealing from his employer. When Sister Mary Catherine discovered his crimes, he panicked and killed her. The other murders were necessary to eliminate witnesses. Mr. Morrison was visiting his sister during a difficult time in his life. but he had no knowledge of or participation in any criminal activity. The first prosecution witness was Detective Brennan, who testified about the discovery of the bodies and the subsequent investigation. Detective, what led you to suspect that this was more than a simple missing persons case? The deliberate positioning of the bodies and the evidence of financial fraud suggested a conspiracy involving multiple perpetrators with detailed knowledge of church operations. Did the physical evidence support this theory? Yes. The murder weapon contained fingerprints from both Charles Henley and Robert Morrison. DNA evidence under Sister Mary Catherine's fingernails matched Morrison's genetic profile. Reese cross-examined Brennan aggressively, trying to suggest that the evidence was circumstantial and could be explained by innocent contact. Detective, isn't it possible that Mr. Morrison's fingerprints were on the hammer because he helped with maintenance work during his visit to the convent? The hammer was found buried behind the rectory, and blood evidence shows it was used to kill all 3 victims. Innocent maintenance work doesn't explain those facts. The second day of testimony featured Dr. Elizabeth Hayes, the county coroner, who described the victims' injuries and the evidence of deliberate burial. Dr. Hayes, were you able to determine the cause of death for all 3 victims? Yes. Each woman died from a single blow to the occipital region of the skull, delivered with sufficient force to cause immediate death. The weapon was consistent with a claw hammer found at the crime scene. What did the defensive wounds on Sister Mary Catherine suggest about the attack? She fought back against her attacker. The injuries to her hands and arms indicate she tried to defend herself before receiving the fatal blow. Charles Henley took the stand on the 3rd day, appearing nervous but determined to tell the truth. His testimony was devastating to Morrison's defense. Mr. Henley, please describe your interaction with Robert Morrison on October 14, 1988. Morrison approached me near the tool shed behind the rectory. He said Patricia had told him about our financial problem and the threat posed by Sister Mary Catherine. He asked if I was prepared to do whatever was necessary to protect myself. What did you understand that to mean? He implied that Sister Mary Catherine would have to be eliminated permanently. When I objected, he became threatening and said I was already in too deep to back out. Did you witness the murders on October 15th? Yes. Morrison used a hammer from the maintenance supplies to kill Sister Mary Catherine first. When the other 2 sisters screamed, he killed them as well. It happened very quickly. What was Morrison's demeanor during the murders? He was calm and methodical. This wasn't a panic reaction. He seemed experienced with violence. Reese's cross-examination focused on Henley's plea agreement and his motivation to implicate Morrison falsely. Mr. Henley, didn't you receive a significantly reduced sentence in exchange for your testimony against my client? Yes, but I'm telling the truth about what happened. Isn't it possible you're blaming Mr. Morrison for crimes you committed alone to minimize your own responsibility? No. Morrison was there. He killed those women. The prosecution's strongest evidence came on the 4th day with the introduction of Mother Patricia Morrison's diary. D.A. Walsh read key excerpts to the jury, including Patricia's detailed planning for the murders and her praise for her brother's assistance. Robert's help during the past few days has been invaluable, Walsh read from the October 17, 1988 entry. He understands the importance of discretion and shares my commitment to protecting our family's reputation. The diary entries continued chronologically, documenting the cover-up efforts and Morrison's ongoing financial support from the stolen church funds. Sister Catherine Rose testified about Morrison's presence at the convent during the critical period and his intimidating behavior toward Charles Henley. Sister, did you observe any interactions between Robert Morrison and the 3 victim sisters? I saw him speaking with Sister Mary Catherine on October 14th. She appeared upset after their conversation, which was unusual because she was normally very composed. Did she say anything about their discussion? Nekur, she mentioned to Sister Agnes Marie that some people have no respect for the church or its mission. That was the last time I saw her alive. The defense presented a brief case, calling character witnesses who testified about Morrison's devotion to his sister and his lack of any known animosity toward the Catholic Church. Morrison himself chose not to testify. In closing arguments, D.A. Walsh emphasized the overwhelming evidence against Morrison. Ladies and gentlemen, The defendant's fingerprints are on the murder weapon. His DNA was found under one victim's fingernails. His own sister documented his participation in her diary. Charles Henley testified to witnessing the murders firsthand. This is not a case built on speculation or circumstantial evidence. Robert Morrison is guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder. Defense attorney Reese made a final attempt to cast doubt on the prosecution's case. The state wants you to convict Mr. Morrison based on the testimony of a confessed killer and the diary entries of a dead woman who cannot be cross-examined. Charles Henley has every reason to lie to reduce his own sentence. Patricia Morrison's diary could contain fantasies or deliberate misinformation. The jury deliberated for 6 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. Morrison showed no emotion as the verdicts were read, but several family members of the victims wept with relief. Judge Robert Patterson scheduled sentencing for the following week, when Morrison would learn whether he would face life in prison or death by execution. As the courtroom emptied, Detective Brennan approached the victims' family members who had attended the trial. "I want you to know that Sister Mary Catherine, Sister Agnes Marie, and Sister Bernadette have finally received justice. Their courage in standing up to corruption led to their deaths, but it also led to the exposure of these crimes." Margaret Kowalski, Sister Agnes Marie's niece, thanked Brennan through her tears. "Detective, our family never gave up hope that someday we would know what happened to Aunt Agnes. Thank you for not giving up on this case." The trial had taken 3 weeks, but 7 years of waiting for answers had finally ended. Robert Morrison and Charles Henley would spend the rest of their lives in prison for their roles in murdering 3 innocent nuns. Sentencing and revelations. Judge Robert Patterson's courtroom was again filled to capacity as Robert Morrison faced sentencing for the murders of 3 Catholic nuns. Family members of the victims sat in the front rows, while reporters occupied most of the remaining seats. District Attorney Walsh presented victim impact statements from the families and the religious community affected by the murders. "Your Honor, these 3 women dedicated their lives to serving others. Sister Mary Catherine had served the Church for 37 years, managing finances with absolute integrity. Sister Agnes Marie taught hundreds of children during her 30 years in Catholic education. Sister Bernadette preserved church history and maintained the convent library for over 4 decades. Margaret Kowalski, representing Sister Agnes Marie's family, addressed the court directly. "My aunt was 74 years old when she was murdered. She posed no threat to anyone. She was killed simply because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time." The defendant showed no mercy to an elderly woman who had devoted her life to helping others. Father O'Connor spoke on behalf of the St. Bartholomew community. "These murders devastated our parish and shook our faith, but they also revealed the courage and integrity of the victims, who died because they refused to ignore criminal behavior. Their sacrifice ultimately protected the Church from further theft and corruption." Defense attorney Reese presented mitigating factors, emphasizing Morrison's difficult childhood and his struggle with alcohol and gambling addictions. "Your Honor, Mr. Morrison's life was shaped by poverty, abuse, and addiction. While these factors don't excuse his actions, they help explain how he became involved in this tragedy. He was manipulated by his sister, who used his financial desperation to recruit him into her criminal scheme." Morrison was given the opportunity to address the court before sentencing. He stood silently for several moments before speaking in a barely audible voice. "I'm sorry for what happened to those women. They didn't deserve to die." Judge Patterson delivered his sentence after reviewing the evidence and considering the arguments from both sides. "Mr. Morrison, you have been convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of Sister Mary Catherine, Sister Agnes Marie, and Sister Bernadette. These were calculated, premeditated murders committed for financial gain. The victims were elderly, defenseless women who posed no physical threat to you. Dean, while Indiana law permits the death penalty for these crimes, I am sentencing you to life in prison without the possibility of parole on each count, to be served consecutively. You will spend the rest of your natural life incarcerated for these murders." Morrison showed no reaction as he was led away in handcuffs. His attorney indicated they would appeal the conviction, but legal experts considered reversal unlikely given the strength of the evidence. Charles Henley's sentencing took place the following week. His cooperation with prosecutors and genuine expressions of remorse resulted in the agreed-upon sentence of 25 years to life with parole eligibility. Mr. Henley, you participated in 3 murders and helped conceal these crimes for 7 years, Judge Patterson stated. However, your eventual cooperation with law enforcement and your testimony against your co-conspirators demonstrate some acceptance of responsibility. Henley addressed the victims' families directly. I know my apology can't bring back Sister Mary Catherine, Sister Agnes Marie, and Sister Bernadette. I think about them every day, and I'm sorry I didn't have the courage to stop what happened. I hope someday you can forgive me. The sentencing concluded the criminal proceedings, but Detective Brennan's investigation revealed additional aspects of the conspiracy that never reached trial. Financial analysis showed that Mother Patricia Morrison had stolen over $120,000 from church accounts between 1987 and 1988, far more than originally estimated. She had established accounts at 7 different banks under various fictitious names and corporate entities. The scheme included fraudulent contracts with non-existent companies, inflated prices for legitimate services, and outright theft through forged checks. Patricia had planned to continue the embezzlement indefinitely, using her position as Mother Superior to avoid scrutiny from diocesan auditors. Sister Mary Catherine's discovery of the fraud had threatened to expose not only the theft, but also a broader pattern of financial misconduct within the diocese. Patricia's diary revealed that she had been sharing information about diocesan financial vulnerabilities with her brother, who had connections to organized crime in Chicago. Detective Brennan, we found evidence that Patricia Morrison was planning to expand her operations, reported FBI agent Sarah Martinez, who had joined the investigation due to the interstate banking fraud. She had established relationships with money laundering operations in 3 states. How extensive was her network? Chaudet. Based on the documents we recovered, she was in contact with individuals involved in church embezzlement schemes in Ohio, Michigan, and Illinois. There's evidence suggesting a broader conspiracy to defraud Catholic institutions throughout the Midwest. The FBI investigation led to additional arrests and prosecutions in multiple states. Patricia Morrison's death had prevented her from fully implementing her criminal enterprise, but her planning documents revealed the scope of her ambitions. Dr. Hayes, the county coroner, made an additional discovery during her final analysis of the evidence. Detective, I found something interesting in Mother Patricia's medical records from 1990. She was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer and given less than 2 years to live. So she knew she was dying when she continued the embezzlement after the murders? It appears so. The cancer diagnosis explains why she took out the large life insurance policy naming her brother as beneficiary. She was planning for his financial security after her death. Hey, this revelation added another layer to Patricia Morrison's motivation. Knowing she would die soon, she had accelerated her criminal activities to provide maximum financial benefit to her brother before her death. The case officially closed in December 1995, 7 years and 2 months after the murders. Detective Brennan submitted his final report, documenting the complete scope of the conspiracy and its impact on multiple communities. The St. Bartholomew Convent established the Sister Mary Catherine, Sister Agnes Marie, and Sister Bernadette Memorial Fund, providing scholarships for students pursuing careers in education and social service. The fund was supported by the recovered stolen money and donations from the broader Catholic community. Sister Catherine Rose, who had cooperated extensively with the investigation, was appointed as the new Mother Superior. Under her leadership, the convent implemented new financial oversight procedures to prevent future embezzlement. Detective Brennan, she said during their final meeting, this tragedy has taught us important lessons about the importance of transparency and accountability, even within religious institutions. The 3 sisters who died would want their deaths to serve as a warning and a reminder. The case became a landmark in law enforcement training, demonstrating how financial crimes can escalate to violence when discovery threatens the perpetrators. The investigation techniques used to uncover the conspiracy were adopted by other departments facing similar cases. Father O'Connor retired in 1997, stating that the trauma of the murders and cover-up had affected his ability to serve effectively. He spent his remaining years advocating for victims' rights and supporting other communities affected by clergy misconduct. Charles Henley was denied parole at his first hearing in 2020, but became eligible for reconsideration in 2025. He had served as a model prisoner and participated in victim impact programs, earning support from some members of the victims' families. Robert Morrison died in prison in 2018 from complications related to diabetes and heart disease. He never expressed remorse for the murders beyond his brief statement at sentencing. Justice and remembrance. 10 years after the trial, Detective Ray Brennan, now retired from the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department, returned to St. Bartholomew Convent for the dedication of a memorial garden honoring the 3 murdered nuns. The garden occupied the exact location where Sister Mary Catherine, Sister Agnes Marie, and Sister Bernadette had been found buried a decade earlier. Sister Catherine Rose, still serving as Mother Superior, greeted Brennan at the convent entrance. "Detective, thank you for coming. Your investigation brought justice for our sisters and healing for our community." The memorial service drew over 300 attendees, including family members of the victims, parishioners, law enforcement officials, and representatives from Catholic institutions throughout Indiana. Bishop Michael Thompson offered the dedication prayer. "We gather today not only to remember 3 women who died tragically, but to celebrate their lives of service and their courage in standing up for truth and justice. Sister Mary Catherine, Sister Agnes Marie, and Sister Bernadette exemplified the best values of religious life." Margaret Kowalski, now elderly herself, spoke about her aunt Sister Agnes Marie. "My aunt taught me that education is the path to a better life. She believed every child deserved opportunities to learn and grow. The scholarship fund established in her memory has helped over 50 students pursue college degrees." The memorial garden featured 3 bronze plaques, each bearing the name and photograph of one victim, along with details of their service to the church and community. A central fountain was inscribed with the words, "Truth and justice endure forever." During the ceremony, Sister Catherine Rose announced that the convent had recovered an additional $40,000 in stolen funds through ongoing legal proceedings against Mother Patricia Morrison's estate. The money would be added to the Memorial Scholarship Fund. "These discoveries continue even now," she explained to Brennan. Mother Patricia had hidden assets in safety deposit boxes and investment accounts that we're still uncovering with the help of forensic accountants. After the ceremony, Brennan visited the graves of the 3 sisters in the convent cemetery. Their headstones were simple granite markers bearing their names, dates of service, and the inscription, "Faithful Servants of God." Purwee Sheriff Patricia Walsh, who had worked closely with Brennan on the case, joined him at the gravesites. "Ray, this case changed how we investigate financial crimes. The techniques you developed for tracing complex embezzlement schemes are now standard procedure. The most important lesson was never giving up on victims, even when cases seem hopeless." These 3 women waited 7 years for justice, but they finally got it. The case had indeed influenced law enforcement practices throughout Indiana and neighboring states. The St. Bartholomew Protocol required immediate financial audits whenever religious or charitable organization members went missing under suspicious circumstances. Charles Henley, now serving his 26th year in prison, had maintained a correspondence with Father O'Connor and several victim family members. His letters expressed ongoing remorse and detailed his participation in prison ministry programs. In a letter read at the memorial service, Henley wrote, "I think about Sister Mary Catherine, Sister Agnes Marie, and Sister Bernadette every day. They died because of my cowardice and greed. I pray that their families can someday forgive me, and I hope my cooperation with the investigation provided some measure of justice for their loss." The parole board had denied his latest request for early release, citing the severity of his crimes and their impact on the victims' families. However, his genuine remorse and prison conduct suggested he might eventually be granted parole after serving at least 30 years. The FBI investigation that grew out of the St. Bartholomew case resulted in prosecutions in 6 states and the recovery of over $2 million stolen from Catholic institutions. Agent Sarah Martinez received commendation for her work exposing the broader embezzlement network. Detective Brennan's initial investigation uncovered what turned out to be a massive conspiracy targeting religious organizations throughout the Midwest, Martinez explained. Mother Patricia Morrison was planning to be the coordinator of a criminal enterprise involving dozens of corrupt church officials. The case also led to significant reforms in Catholic financial management. The Diocese of Fort Wayne South Bend implemented new audit procedures, segregation of duties, and transparency requirements that became models for other dioceses nationwide. Dr. Elizabeth Hayes, the coroner who had performed the autopsies on the 3 victims, attended the memorial service with her family. This case taught me the importance of thorough forensic analysis in cold cases. Physical evidence can survive for years or decades, waiting for the right technology and investigative techniques to reveal the truth. The DNA evidence that had been crucial in convicting Robert Morrison was among the first applications of advanced genetic analysis in Indiana criminal cases. The techniques developed for the investigation were subsequently used to solve dozens of other cold cases. As the memorial service concluded, Brennan reflected on the complexity of human nature revealed by the case. 3 women had died because of greed and corruption, but their deaths had ultimately strengthened the institutions they served and protected countless others from similar crimes. Sister Catherine Rose invited Brennan to tour the renovated convent, which now housed expanded educational programs and community services. Detective, the sisters who died would be pleased to know that their sacrifice led to positive changes. We serve more people now than ever before, and we do it with complete financial transparency. The convent's records were now subject to regular independent audits, and all financial decisions required approval from a board that included lay members from the community. Father Michael Rodriguez, who had replaced Father O'Connor as pastor, showed Brennan the new financial management systems. Every transaction is documented and reviewed by multiple people. We've learned from the tragedy of 1988 that trust without verification can lead to devastating consequences. The Memorial Scholarship Fund, established in honor of the 3 sisters, had grown to over $400,000 through donations and careful investment. Recipients were selected based on academic merit and commitment to public service. 53 students have received scholarships so far, Sister Catherine Rose explained. They're becoming teachers, social workers, nurses, and counselors. The sisters' legacy lives on through their service to others. As Brennan prepared to leave the convent, he encountered Tommy Kowalski, the construction foreman whose excavator had first uncovered the buried bodies in 1995. Detective, I still think about that day when we found them. I'm glad we were able to give those sisters a proper burial and bring their killers to justice. Mr. Kowalski, your discovery gave us the opportunity to solve a case that might otherwise have remained unsolved forever. The victims' families are grateful for your role in uncovering the truth. The St. Bartholomew case became a subject of academic study in criminology and forensic science programs. The investigation demonstrated how financial crimes could escalate to violence and how patient, methodical police work could solve complex conspiracies. Detective Brennan, now working as a consultant on cold cases, frequently spoke at law enforcement conferences about the techniques used in the investigation. The most important lesson from this case is that victims deserve justice, regardless of how much time has passed. Physical evidence, financial records, and witness testimony can all contribute to solving crimes that seem hopeless. The case files from the St. Bartholomew investigation were eventually donated to the Indiana State Police Academy for training purposes, with personal information redacted to protect privacy. As the sun set over the memorial garden, Brennan placed flowers on each of the 3 bronze plaques. Sister Mary Catherine, Sister Agnes Marie, and Sister Bernadette had finally received the recognition and justice they deserved. Their story served as a reminder that good people sometimes pay the ultimate price for standing up to corruption, but their sacrifice can inspire others to continue the fight for truth and justice. The memorial garden would remain as a permanent testament to their courage and integrity, ensuring that their deaths would not be forgotten, and that their example would continue to inspire future generations of people committed to serving others. In the end, justice had prevailed, truth had been revealed, and the memory of 3 innocent women had been honored. The case of the buried sisters was closed, but their legacy of courage and integrity would endure forever. 10 years after the murders, 15 years after the discovery, and 25 years after their deaths, Sister Mary Catherine, Sister Agnes Marie, and Sister Bernadette had found their final peace. Their killers had been brought to justice, their stolen funds had been recovered and put to good use, and their community had learned valuable lessons about vigilance and accountability. The St. Bartholomew Convent continued to thrive under Sister Catherine Rose's leadership, serving as a model for financial transparency and community service. The 3 sisters who had died protecting church resources would have been proud to see how their sacrifice had ultimately strengthened the institution they had served so faithfully. Detective Brennan drove away from the convent as evening shadows lengthened across the memorial garden. The case that had defined his career was finally, completely closed. Justice had been served, truth had been revealed, and 3 innocent victims had been properly honored. The buried sisters would rest in peace, knowing that their courage in confronting corruption had not been in vain. Their legacy lived on in the students who received scholarships in their memory, the improved financial practices that protected other institutions, and the law enforcement techniques that helped solve similar crimes. In death, Sister Mary Catherine, Sister Agnes Marie, and Sister Bernadette had achieved more than they could have imagined in life. They had become symbols of integrity, courage, and the ultimate triumph of justice over evil. Their story would continue to inspire others to stand up for truth, regardless of the personal cost. The case of the 3 buried nuns was finally closed, but their memory would endure forever in the hearts of those who knew them and the institutions they had died protecting. Epilogue. Today, the St. Bartholomew Memorial Garden remains a place of reflection and remembrance. Visitors come from around the world to honor the 3 sisters who died for their principles and to learn from their example. The scholarship fund established in their memory has grown to over $1 million and has helped more than 100 students pursue careers in education and public service. Many recipients return to the convent annually to report on their progress and express gratitude for the opportunity provided by the sisters' legacy. Charles Henley was finally granted parole in 2030 after serving 35 years in prison. He spent his remaining years working with victim advocacy groups and speaking to young people about the consequences of criminal choices. He died peacefully in 2035, having found some measure of redemption through his service to others. The financial management reforms implemented at St. Bartholomew Convent were adopted by Catholic institutions worldwide, preventing countless similar crimes. The Morrison Protocols became standard practice for religious organizations handling significant financial resources. Detective Ray Brennan's investigative techniques were incorporated into law enforcement training programs across the United States. The St. Bartholomew method of investigating complex financial conspiracies helped solve hundreds of similar cases over the following decades. The 3 sisters who died in 1988 had achieved immortality through their courage and sacrifice. Their names were inscribed not only on bronze plaques and scholarship awards, but in the hearts of all who believed that truth and justice must prevail over corruption and evil. Sister Mary Catherine, Sister Agnes Marie, and Sister Bernadette had kept their final vigil, ensuring that their deaths served a greater purpose and that their memory would inspire future generations to stand up for what is right, regardless of the cost. Their story serves as a testament to the power of integrity and the ultimate triumph of good over evil. Though they paid the ultimate price for their principles, their legacy continues to protect and inspire others, proving that even in death, the righteous continue to serve.